In episode number 389 of the Reasons I'm Broke podcast, along with special guest Kevin from Cup to Cup podcast, we cover the removal of Dan Didio from DC Comics.
It is also the first week of the month on the podcast. That means what's new on Netflix, and we have your March 2020 highlights.
And our comic book highlight this week is Amethyst #1 as chosen by the Brokettes.
All of this and so much more on today's show.
Hello and welcome to the award-winning The Reasons I'm Broke podcast, bringing you the reasons we're broke every single week, ranging from comics, movies, TV, video games, and more. I am your Emperor Kelli.
And I am Bug Maniac Daniel.
Gross. What's your favorite bug?
From the Pokemon world?
No, just in general. I'm putting you on the spot.
Yeah, you are. I like ants because of beach ants. You kind of turned me on to that.
I think scarab beetles are my favorite.
Scarab beetles, why those? I know Leo plays with a dead one every once in a while.
Because they're so cool. I don't know. Growing up, they were like everywhere in Florida. And so my dad would always catch one and they were real slow. So they weren't scary. They weren't like roaches flying at you or anything like that. I don't know. They were just chill.
Well, today on the podcast, we have, as you mentioned, Kevin from Cup to Cup podcast. Kevin, we've interacted based on, a mutual location here in Florida. And we kind of grew to discover that we each had a podcast. You were plugging away yours, so I plugged away mine, and we kind of got talking and have kept contact for months on end since then. And we finally got the chance to go ahead and do a crossover. So go ahead and tell the Brokettes what the Cup to Cup podcast is about and what your first exposure to superhero culture was.
So, hey guys, my name's Kevin. Basically the Cup to Cup podcast is really just like a couple of us college buddies we've got together over the years. We'd be talking over time. People like, you got to put that on. You guys got to like record this. You guys are hilarious. So we are literally just like a bar talk kind of feel. But then over time, we've developed kind of a game show kind of thing as well, where we have different segments like fill in the blank, trivia. We have a bracket, which we currently have a cereal bracket going on. But we've also done, like Leo movies, best sub sandwich, Christmas movies. I know the Marvel. I won't talk about it. But yeah, that's basically what we're all about.
Yeah, I really enjoy the Cup to Cup podcast, something I listen to every week, and they have it listed on their website as a comedy podcast. So if you enjoy jokes and like you mentioned, a bunch of bar talk and comedy and
guy humor. Is it guy humor?
Yeah, there's definitely some guy humor in there.
Actually, you'd be surprised. Like a lot of women listeners. I don't know if they just like the escape from just the everyday girly thing, but we have lots of women listeners.
There you go. And Kevin is joining us today to talk about some of these news stories that we're going to go through and kind of cover a little bit of the superhero world, kind of as we do every week, except now we'll have a third person on. And Kevin, what was your first exposure to superheroes?
So, like growing up, I was always a big like the Wolverine card or the X-Men cartoon. I used to love that. So then that sent me into my local comic book shop, where I was trying to find, the Wolverine and X-Men comic books. But, I mean, outside of that, I didn't really get into it after that. I mean, obviously, I've watched all the movies and everything, and I'm much, much, much more educated thanks to you guys, of course.
Thanks, man. Yeah, we appreciate it. I remember the X-Men in the 90s, especially my downstairs neighbor, and I've told the story before on the show, but he used to have a full run of the Jim Lee 90s X-Men comic books. We used to watch the cartoons, and he also had those trading cards as well. So the X-Men, if you grew up in the 90s, late 80s, the X-Men was your jam, and Spider-Man especially. Those two were huge.
Not my jam. I watched none of those cartoons.
Yeah, I'm an old man, though, so...
I don't think we did the outline for the show. The way we format it to any new Brokettes is first we go over some news. We head into what's new on Netflix this week, head into our Patreon shoutouts, which are thank yous to everyone who makes the show possible. And we end it with the comic book highlight of the week and the Brokette block, which is listener questions. We've got quite a bit of those, so let's jump right in.
First up, we have some video game news. Ass Effect cinematic designer John... Daniel just gave me such a face.
It's not Ass Effect.
It is Ass Effect. I hate that game.
That cracked me up.
Cinematic designer John Ebinger? Cinematic designer John Ebinger recently revealed some stats via Twitter on where people sat on Paragon Renegade actions.
Are you both familiar with Paragon and Renegade in the Mass Effect series?
You mean the Ass Effect series? Yes. You talked so much about it. I know all the Paragon Renegade things.
What about you?
The bad guy and the good guy, right?
Exactly. Yeah, whatever you choose in the game, it'll kind of influence how people act around you.
And then you'd get scars and become more scraggly.
That's right.
Just like in real life, I guess. If I became an asshole, I'd look real scraggly.
Yeah, kind of. Well, he did tweet. John tweeted that, quote, "Yep, something like 92% of Mass Effect players were Paragon, and we put a lot of work into the Renegade content too." And he put up a sad face emoji with an end quote. Kind of shows that most people more or less went with their natural instincts and went with good results or good choices, wanted to be the good guy. And I think I was the same way when I first played Mass Effect, where I wanted to make the decisions based on what I would choose. And then I would go into like the all evil mode or all good mode and kind of see the differences.
That just shows that there's like hope for America, like hope for good,
There's
in
hope
the
for
world,
humanity.
Right? Exactly. Yeah. Nobody wants to be the bad guy. Everybody wants to be the good guy.
I think that's so true, though, because, yeah, you're going to pretend you're in the game. I mean, you design the character to look like yourself, so why would you just choose evil things?
This reminds me of the end of The Dark Knight with the two boats, and if they blew each other up, then the other one would live.
Right.
And neither one wanted it, and that's when the Joker was like, fuck, I lost. Moving along here, last week at Comics Pro in Portland, Oregon, Marvel Comics announced a Rise of Skywalker comic adaptation through a 5-issue miniseries.
What makes this most interesting is the quote from writer Jody Hauser.
She said, quote, "As a lifelong Star Wars fan, it was an honor to be asked to be a part of wrapping up the Skywalker saga with Marvel Comics. We have some fun plans to add scenes and material that weren't seen in the movie," end quote. A lot of controversy there.
Is she allowed to do this?
Well, apparently, I mean, she got some kind of script and they're going to approve it at some point, but there was a lot of anger among the Star Wars fans over what wasn't included or what was included in the original cut of this and even in the screenplay. Kevin, did you watch the latest Star Wars last year?
Yeah, I did. I mean, I watched all of the Star Wars. I don't know. I wasn't sure which order I was supposed to watch them. So I just watched them.
None of us are sure what order we're supposed to watch
them. So I
them.
just watched them all once it came out on Disney Plus. I have it for my kids, guys. Don't be mad at me, okay? All right. But yeah, I watched them all, and I ended up with that last one. I watched it in the theaters. It was okay. It's all right.
Did it feel like there were missing scenes or things that they just kind of shoehorned in there to end it? Because I haven't seen it, so I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you could always add, a few things here and there, and nobody's ever going to be happy with anything, right? Mm-hmm. There's always going to be somebody that's upset.
Yeah, I think there's that quote of "No one hates Star Wars more than Star Wars fans."
That's 100% true.
That's probably.
Where do you guys stand with the Star Wars? I mean, I know you guys are. I don't want to call you a sheep, so
Yeah, you mean with the DC universe? Yeah, that'd be right. DC belugas is the opposite end of the the Marvel sheep. But yeah, it's very casual Star Wars fans. I mean, I think all of them are just okay. I know some of the fans hate a lot of them, especially the prequels, and I'm like, no, those are fine. They're all fine movies. They're all right. Like, why are they so mad?
It wasn't really anything that I gravitated towards, I think, ever. I mean, I've watched them. I've enjoyed some of the movies. I like the Baby Yoda memes. That's about as far as I go.
I mean, yeah, everybody's, I think, about the same. Nobody's like, God, that blew my mind wide open, No, it's just like, it's okay.
Yeah, I think that loud population of people on the internet getting angry and kind of pointing out all the things in the different Star Wars movies and how it doesn't fit with the books in this area, I think that's a very small section of people who actually watch Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that, like, us three are pretty much the average viewer of all of these movies. And hopefully this does at least satisfy some of the fans that were upset with Rise of Skywalker with the comic book series. Yet another way that Disney can earn a little bit of money from the Star Wars fans. And let's face it, they were going to buy it anyway.
I mean, this is just another reason for people to argue, too, about why it's wrong. Why it doesn't fit in with continuity.
In case they needed another reason, right? You know?
Right. It's just going to stir things back up. They're just being shit stirrers right now.
Yeah. So that's like me on Discord. Every time the guys get into an argument, and when the argument stops, I'll like throw a little something in there just to spark it.
And he's so proud of himself. He'll like find me in the other room, like, guess what I just did?
Because I just purposely act ignorant. Like, wait a second, is that what that means? And then the other person gets mad again.
Now you've given yourself away.
That is 100% my producer, Jason, on our show. Same exact way. Like, he'll just troll just to troll. And he's so transparent nowadays. Like, no, we don't even fall for it anymore.
It's like me with you. I don't fall for it anymore.
Yeah, that's true.
You try. And I'm just like, oh, really? Wow.
This next bit of news is going to be a huge block of it. And Kevin, if you need some further explanation on what's going on with these publishers, definitely let me know, because I know you won't be the only one. Some of our listeners aren't as heavy onto the Twitterverse when the comic creators are getting on there and they're talking, and even at the comic shop where some of the Wednesday warriors who do follow this a lot closer, we're kind of concerned about this, and there was all kinds of fucking rumors and what this means for the future of DC Comics as a publishing company. Well, longtime DC co-publisher Dan Didio was removed from his position last week, completely unexpected. No one saw this coming. He didn't see this coming. From what I understand, he was already on vacation when he got let go. And I don't know if he already knew that he was going to get let go and that's why he left, or if they just did it while he was out of the office. There's a lot of questions as to what this means for DC as a publisher.
But this does end an 18-year run at DC for Didio, who joined the company January 2002 as vice president editorial while co-writing Superboy.
I've met Dan Didio a few times, really nice guy, and he was actually a very good friend of one of the owners of the comic shop. I don't want to say chain, but because it's independently owned by two owners, but one of the owners kept in constant contact with Dan, and he really listened to comic stores and what feedback we had for a lot of the books. And one of the big things we kept telling him is make these comic books returnable. In other words, if we order 20 copies of Superman #1, and whatever we don't sell after a month or so, we're able to get credit back from the publisher, which helps everyone because we're able to find the ceiling and they're able to sell more copies. Whereas normally we would order a lot more conservatively if we cannot return these comics. And, he was one of those ears that opened up on this initiative. He saw all the other publishers doing it. And to me, he was more grounded and in contact really with the local businesses and the local stores and small businesses.
With the peasants.
And some of these the one I always point to is Marvel and Disney. Whenever they go to the retailers conference, you never see any of the publishers on there taking feedback. They always send a representative, because it ends up being the retailer is kind of bombarding them with like, you guys need to do this, 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 and this. You're hurting the industry with this. And that's different than, like DC, where Dan would always be there. And they're in the good and the bad, right? When it was shitty, when they were about to do DC Rebirth and all these publishers or retailers were angry, he was taking these questions. They were in the tough times and he was answering them. And even if we didn't like the answers, he was there and he was listening. So this is kind of the end of a pretty big era for the publisher. And there's some rumors as to why he got let go. One of them is the 5G initiative with DC Comics. Are you familiar with that, Kevin?
Yeah, I think I read up on that. I mean, I don't know about they have too much to worry about that. But I mean, anytime that you lose, a ear for the retailer or a ear for the fans, that is never a good thing, man.
Yeah, we're kind of worried that they're going to put in a AT&T or Warner Brothers pencil pusher and someone that's not really going to be there to advance the industry and instead try to hit certain numbers. And there's rumors of people even worried that AT&T is going to straight up get rid of the DC publishing side of things, because it's not really, it's almost $1 billion market or a seller for them each year. But compared to everything else they do, AT&T as a fucking company where they make billions off of just the communications portion, this isn't really worth their time, right? So there's that speculation going around.
Did AT&T buy all of Warner Brothers or just DC Comics?
They own Warner Brothers, which Warner Brothers is
okay.
Yeah.
So, but no, they're not going to get rid of. What are people thinking they're going to get rid of this? No, because the comics are what leads into these movies, and how much do these movies bring in for them? There's no way that they're going to say, well, because you're not as profitable as we could would like you to be, we're just going to scrap that, because then you're scrapping all the movies as well. And what else is Warner Brothers putting out right now?
Absolutely. You need that comic book to tell the big story that you can put into the movie theater, man. That's what you need. If you lose that, oh man, that could be a problem for sure.
Yeah, that would, I think, be the end to a lot of these future stories. We wouldn't get stories like Civil War anymore or Superman Red Sun. These classics that later got adapted onto cartoons and movies and shorts and everything, and none of that would be possible, and I don't think it would be the same at all. So I agree with you. I don't think that they're going to get rid of that publishing division. And some of these, we talked about the MCU sheep, some of them were getting excited on Twitter like, oh, we can finally get good DC movies. What if Disney buys up the DC publishing side?
Get away with that nonsense. Disney's got its own things to worry about with all these people moving around. And
that's true. Bob Iger, right?
Yeah, Bob Iger stepped down and Bob Chapek stepped in, and people are like, well, you're just trading one Bob for another Bob. So it really doesn't make a difference. Just Bob Iger says he wants to focus more on the creative side.
I know someone on Discord was saying that this was like a planned move by Bob about a year ago.
Supposedly.
I don't know. You're right, though. There were a lot of issues at Disney going on.
There still are. There's so many issues. I can't even get into them. I'm angry about a lot of things that are going on over there.
Don't be angry. Don't be angry.
I gotta be. The emperor knows no other way to be.
This is facts. This is true.
But as of now, there is no one else there with Jim Lee as co-publisher of DC Comics. They haven't announced anyone as of our recording of this episode, so there's a lot of questions as to what this means for 5G. People were saying that there was a lot of disagreements internally over this 5G initiative, which is why a lot of editors left before Dan Didio left, and that AT&T got rid of him so that they wouldn't do this 5G initiative, although none of that is confirmed yet.
Did you submit your application yet?
Oh, I should fucking submit, right?
Why not? I would be a pencil pusher all day long if they gave me that position. What do you want, AT&T? You got it. You got it. It's fine.
But we need the Snyder Cut. Well, we have some reactions here from people who actually work in the trenches of comic books. And one of the biggest ones is superstar artist, one of the highest paid comic book artists right now, Greg Capullo, about to come out with Dark Knight's Death Metal.
He said on his Twitter, quote, "Sad day. My evil twin, pictured far left, Dan Didio, is no longer with DC. The two of us share practically parallel lives. He gave me great opportunities and full support. I'll miss him at DC. He'll always be welcome in my home." End quote.
That same goes with my home, too. I mean, he's always welcome in my home as well.
Ours as well. Come on, Dan.
Yeah.
Just
come on through,
come
Dan.
on over.
Another superstar writer right now is Tom King. He said, quote, "Working for Dan Didio was working for the ultimate comic nerd, a man who passionately loved the medium and its creators, a publisher who worked tirelessly on their behalf. I'm eternally grateful he gave me quite a few shots. Can't wait to see what he does with his next one," end quote.
What do you think he's got next on board if he's not going to be with DC?
Some people were thinking like, oh, is he going to jump ship? Maybe he'll go to Marvel, but I think
Marvel's not going to pay him enough.
They have their guys already in place.
Right.
And yeah, they're a lot stricter over who they put up.
Do you foresee him going to one of the independent publishers?
That's what I was telling someone earlier, like maybe Boom Studios or IDW, but as far as pay, they're not going to pay him what he was getting paid at DC Comics. So realistically, I think he'll end up at like a high-end, like a Nike or someone, like another big company.
But also realistically, let's stop and think about this. He's very passionate about comics, right? If he took care of his money. He probably has a good amount saved up. And if he were going into one of these independent publishers and they really said, hey, we know you didn't get as much creative freedom as you wanted when you were at DC, do whatever you want, right? Especially, who is it? Who were we just talking about who's not doing as well? IDW?
Image Comics.
Image Comics. Okay, so especially if Image Comics were to pick him up and say, hey, turn us around, right? Do whatever you need to do to get us to where we need to be. And he could do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we can't pay you as much, but you can do whatever the hell you want to do.
Whatever you want.
Yeah.
Worth it.
Sounds like it.
Next Twitter reaction comes from Jimmy Palmiotti. I love Jimmy. He said, quote,
Dan Didio, his time at DC was an amazing accomplishment. Thank you, Dan, for letting Amanda and I grow as storytellers and always having our backs. We will miss that bold and creative energy that you brought to DC, and we look forward to seeing what comes next. End quote.
And finally, we have a question here from Twitter user and brocat at Jeremy ORR13, who asked us, and we kind of touched on this already, but he said, quote, recently, Ethan Van Sciver claimed an insider at DC stated that if 5G doesn't go over well, AT&T would close publishing. As a retailer, do you think there is any truth to the rumors? We touched on that we don't believe those rumors at all. Ethan Van Sciver is interesting because him and who's the co-creator of Deadpool? Rob Liefeld. They were both celebrating and kind of dancing on Dan Didio's grave online and celebrating the fact that he was gone and how this is the end for DC. Neither of these guys were getting work. They used to get work from DC, especially Ethan. And over the last couple of years, they weren't really getting that work anymore. And there was a lot of factors, I'm assuming, that went into that. Like Ethan, he is very vocal about how he feels with the diversity movement that happened a few years ago with the characters that Marvel especially was doing. And that kind of alienated him to a lot of these bigger companies and publishers because, you know, if someone's out there spouting things that could be viewed, whether or not they are actually, but could be viewed as sexist or racist, a company's immediately going to distance themselves from you. And the last thing I remember from Ethan was that Dawnbreaker Dark Knight's Metal one-shot. And he's an amazing artist. I love his work. But that was the last bit that we saw from him. So these two creators kind of have it out for the company already. So they want to see that company burn. And it's going to be the same if something happens to Marvel as well, because they're not really getting work from them. And I know Liefeld got really pissed off at what happened between them and Major X.
They're just being negative Nancys.
I mean, why can't we be friends? You know, like, I mean, it bothers me so much when people try to take like something like a person losing their job and like attacking that, you know, like this man, you know, he's worked for how many years and you're going to bash him like this? Come on, man. You're better than that.
It just shows that they aren't looking within themselves and saying, why did I really lose this work?
Exactly.
There you go. It's true.
It's a form of maturity.
Exactly.
This is what I try to teach Leo when he's crying. I'm like, you need to be mature about this, Leo.
How's that work out for you?
Not well. He just cries more.
I feel like that's going to be a pattern throughout our lives.
Probably.
He'll
It
be in his
will be.
30s.
It
Same
will
thing.
Same thing.
Hashtag voice of experience.
Let's head into our next segment, which is what's new on Netflix. News was a little bit light this week, so because of that, we do have a lot of questions that thankfully the Broke had submitted, but we've got the March 2020 highlights for what's coming on Netflix.
These are just the highlights, things that pertain to us, to the show. You can find the full list on Google if you just search What's New on Netflix, March 2020. But the first one we have is Cop Out from 2010.
Did you ever see this one by Kevin Smith, Kevin?
No.
This is the one that had Bruce Willis and Tracy Morgan. I think what's his name? He was a comedian. But this is the one that made Bruce infamous with all the Kevin Smith fans because he just didn't like the script, was fighting every scene, wouldn't show up for filming.
Then why do you sign up for it?
Apparently, he's like this all the time. Like, he likes to rewrite the scripts himself. If he doesn't like the way his character's portrayed, he'll just refuse to show up that day. And it was a difficult process for Kevin Smith. And the reason I put this on this list is because now I want to watch. I've never seen Cop Out, but it was like one of the biggest budget movies that Kevin had done. And it came with a lot of problems due to that, with the studio constantly breathing down his neck. Like, why are we falling behind? This is costing a lot of money. Tracy Morgan has to film extra scenes just to make up for Bruce's. And I want to watch this just to see if I can kind of see where some of these things went wrong, where Bruce was just phoning it in.
He was being immature.
He's friends with Ethan and Rob.
And Leo,
I think
apparently.
it's hilarious how Kevin Smith, he's like, all right, you guys don't want to show up to work? Well, I'm going home too. All right, see you later.
Next on this list is Tim Burton's Corpse Bride.
This, I think, got almost, I don't know, I feel like it got as big as Nightmare Before Christmas.
Not quite, but those same fans were watching it.
Pretty big. Like, I still see this stuff around for it all the time. And it was an okay movie. Like, it didn't really appeal to me. I think I watched it because Johnny Depp voiced what's his name in there,
Victor?
right? Yeah, that was the only reason I watched it, because it was right after Pirates, and I was on like that Pirates kick.
Any experience on this, Kevin? Night Before Christmas, Corpse Bride?
I got nothing, man. My little brother is a big Nightmare Before Christmas fan, so shout out to him. I mean, I'm sure he's probably seen this, probably has it on Blu-ray and everything. So
have you seen the theory that Nightmare Before Christmas, Corpse Bride, and Frankenweenie are all like in the same universe?
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty cool.
It almost fits because the character designs sort of look like, but those are all Tim Burton's drawings, right?
Yeah, of course.
Next Tim Burton's a genius, though. I mean, I'll tell you that.
He is, yeah, and I think his best days are behind him, but like a lot of people immediately shit on him like, oh man, he's finished. And it's like, well, look, he did some movies that are going to be remembered 50 years from now, 100 years from now. Mm-hmm. You know, how many directors can say that?
Yeah.
Nobody in Marvel.
One director, we've got Scorsese. His Goodfellas movie from 1990 is going to be hitting Netflix.
Haven't seen it. We'll have to. I do like Scorsese.
Wait a second, Kelly. Are you kidding me?
I've seen so few movies. Like, realistically, until I started dating Daniel, like, I just never watched anything.
It's one of the great movies of all time, in my opinion, of course. I mean, it's a little bit on the longer side, but... So
it'll take us 2 weeks to watch it.
Yeah. I mean, you need about 3 nap times for that one to, to get through that one, but... Definitely watch that. I mean, if you don't mind a little bit of foul language, goriness, and women abusing, for that manner, which I wouldn't recommend for any of that at all.
It was a different time, the 90s.
But
Thank you.
Couldn't make it now. Daniel. It's 2020. Can't make that movie now. But we should definitely add it to our list.
1 year later, Hook released, and that one is also hitting Netflix.
I have seen Hook very, very many times.
Hook, where's the hook? Hook. Where's the hook? Yeah. Great movie.
And the next pair here is Resident Evil Apocalypse and Extinction.
Who cares?
Okay, I was like, I hope they don't talk about this.
For a while, because of these movies, and it wasn't setting a high bar, but they were, the first one at least was the best video game adapted movie.
Yeah.
Like, this is all we had at that time, right? And then better movies started releasing.
What's the best video game adapted movie now?
Tomb Raider is really fucking good. It's from 2-3 years ago.
I can't think of one better, though. I didn't watch the, what's the one with is it Jared Leto? Where he's jumping all over the buildings and everything, and I can't remember what movie that is. But anyway.
Oh, Assassin's Creed.
Thank you. Yeah, I never watched that one.
Jake Gyllenhaal? Is that who it was?
No, that's Prince of Persia.
Same person, right?
It's the same thing. It's the same game. Same movie.
But yeah, I never watched that one. But I mean, when it comes to comic books, that's all. They need to make a The Last of Us movie. I mean, The Last of Us is a great video game, in my opinion, and I think that would go well over on the.
I think they should do Heavy Rain.
Okay, there you go. Never played that one, but I'm looking forward to it.
It's intense.
It's pretty much a movie. Like, you're playing the thing, and it's like a choose your own adventure.
Yeah, why don't they do that? I mean, any of these like video games that are pretty much a movie, you might as well just do it, right?
Yeah, I think that's when you see a lot of these YouTubers, they'll just splice the cutscenes together because they're like, honestly, you don't need the gameplay to tell the story. Or sometimes they'll just include the bit of gameplay where the character's talking to you and if it's important to the story. And some of these guys, you can plug that shit into YouTube and it'll pop right up.
I mean, that ruins it for everybody. Thanks a lot.
Next on our list, we have There Will Be Blood.
Starring, I think he's retired now, but Daniel Day-Lewis.
Mm-hmm. He just does what he wants to do very rarely.
If you haven't seen this, Kevin, it is one of my favorite movies of all time. And it's about oil digging, but it's about the greed of it and how this man becomes so corrupted by oil that he will... family is dispensable and everything. Even his own body at one point doesn't matter. As long as he gets that oil, he gets that money.
Not only have I seen it, I agree with everything you just said. It is one of my favorite movies of all time. And Daniel Day-Lewis is obviously one of my favorite actors of all time. I mean, what a great performance. What a great movie. I mean, I enjoy dark and slow, and everything about it was perfect.
One of my favorite bits of trivia from that, because he's a method actor, right? Just like Heath Ledger was and Christian Bale is. He sat in the dark, I forgot what it was, for like 30 minutes or an hour. And just to get his eyes right when he's looking at just darkness, so that when that scene comes up where he's looking at the oil going up, he has that same look as he's staring at the black oil. And she's shaking her head right now like, oh my God. But he did that just for the film, for his artwork. That's some crazy method acting. He'll stay in character in between takes.
If I were this director, he would come to me and be like, Kelli, this is what I did. And I'd be like, Daniel... you didn't have to do this much.
Yeah, you didn't have to do all that. It wasn't necessary.
Did he get nominated for an Oscar for that role?
I don't know if he
won,
did.
I don't remember if he won.
I believe so.
Fucking amazing. And the last one on this list, I know some of our listeners are video game players and they've been keeping up with this, but Castlevania Season 3 will be hitting Netflix.
I have a better video game adaptation.
What is it?
The Witcher.
Oh shit, that's isn't
it's
that
not
a book
a movie.
Though?
It was a book first, and then it became a video game, and then now it's not even a movie, but it's better. I'm sure it's better than Tomb Raider.
Gotta be 100%.
So there you go, everyone. The list for this week kind of pertains to what we've watched in the past or what we would recommend, and I think the biggest one there would be There Will Be Blood. If you only have time for one, although Goodfellas, I mean that's up there too.
It's on our list.
Get it, Kelly.
Let's head into our thank yous for this week, our Patreon shout-outs.
This week we have 6 shout-outs. The first one goes out to Alexander, whose Twitter handle is @SwordfishShow. You can also find him at purpleswordfish.com.
So Alexander recently spoke about the digital versus physical media debate on his weekly podcast called Dead Channel Duo. Make sure to check it out. It's a really solid show. It covers sports, it covers gaming, and covers movies as well. And there is that he's a little bit older than I am. I'm 32, and he's also grown up in that physical media world, right? I think just like all three of us did. But he's finding that he's slowly transitioning to digital in as far as like movies and music, because he simply doesn't have the space to store all of his Blu-rays and DVDs anymore.
I mean, if I learn one thing from this show, make sure that you keep a physical copy, right, Dan?
That's right. Yeah, because you never really know when you're going to have that internet disconnection or when these services go out of business and you lose your library. That does happen.
I'm really weird because there's some things that I prefer digital. So like my books and things that I read, I prefer to have them digitally because I feel it's just easier not having to carry around a giant book, etc. I do listen to music digitally, but I'm streaming it. If I really like something like Maroon 5, I buy every single CD that they come out with, right? Yeah. If it's somebody that I really enjoy, yes, I like to have the CD and keep it in my car and pop it in, even though, yes, I could still stream it also, but whatever. I'm odd. Like I'm back and forth. Comic books I prefer to have physically as opposed to digitally, but I don't know. It's just the times we live in.
It's not like about like, oh, you should keep that because it'll be worth something one day. No, you should keep that because it's going to be awesome one day.
It'll continue to be awesome, and it's already awesome.
Exactly.
Next shout out goes out to Lourdes and Katie. You can find Katie on Twitter at CatCatFluffs.
Katie purchased a Deathstroke PVC statue that released 2 weeks ago.
Deathstroke being her favorite comic book character of all time. Deathstroke recently lost, and let me know what you think, Kelly, or you, Kevin. He lost the sexiest DC man poll.
Oh,
he was the lowest.
He was
voting.
nominated?
Okay, well, I guess you agree with them. It was up against Jason Todd, Superboy, and I believe Nightwing. I'd have to look at the poll again.
Ooh, which Nightwing? Is he mullet Nightwing or not mullet Nightwing?
I think it's pretty sure it's modern Nightwing.
Well, of course Nightwing won for that booty. Did he win?
Okay, here's the list. It's Tim Drake, Jason Todd, Deathstroke, and Kite Man.
Oh.
And Jason Todd ended up winning.
Yeah, I could see that.
Is this the Will Smith character guy?
Deathstroke, no. He's the character that that Deadpool and that they pretty much Rob Liefeld, we're talking about him again a lot this episode. He ripped off Deathstroke to make Deadpool, even though now he claims he didn't. Years ago, that wasn't the same story.
Sure.
So to a lot of people today, he's an orange and blue Deadpool, even though I guess really Deadpool is a red and black Deathstroke.
But he's also super old.
He is, but he has that super soldier thing going for him, you know?
But he's just not attractive.
Well, I guess if you're into the Silver Foxes, Deathstroke would be yours.
Who's not into Silver Foxes? I mean, come on. We're all on our way.
Some eventually. I approve of, like Daniel Craig. He's great, but Deathstroke, no.
Well, maybe Daniel Craig one day will play Deathstroke.
Old Man Bruce, sure. But Deathstroke, no.
You're going to piss off Katie. She's one of our Patreon backers. You better change that tune.
She can fight me.
I was thinking of Deadshot. I feel so embarrassed. I'm embarrassed.
Deadshot, yes. I would vote for Deadshot over Deathstroke.
Next shout out goes out to Bobby on Twitter at Cuban Slim.
Bobby was excited on our Discord that Jurassic World Dominion started filming. We'll see the return of Sam Neill, Laura Dern, Jeff Goldblum, and other people we don't care about.
What'd you think of the last couple Jurassic Worlds, Kevin?
They were just like a modern, trying to be a modern day, the same exact one, right?
I was here for it.
Yeah, I mean, you can't replicate greatness sometimes, you know? Sometimes you can, but not with Jurassic Park. I mean, the first one was the best one, and you should have just left it at that.
But I keep showing up, and I keep giving them money. So
absolutely.
They're going to keep making them.
100%.
Hopefully Jeff Goldblum has a bigger role than, I think Jurassic World 1 is the one where he's just narrating the whole thing. He's at that conference.
Yeah, and he's like, we can't. Life will find a way. And I'm like, it will, Jeff Goldblum.
Yeah, you said that like 20 years ago, bro.
Have you seen? So obviously there were those terrible brush fires in Australia, but now everything's growing back, and so people keep reposting it on Facebook with like, life will find a way.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank God that that's happening, and Jeff Goldblum was the sole reason, I'm sure.
Next shout out goes out to John on Twitter at John72Tex and Instagram at Johnny2Chips.
John shared his 6.5 CGC graded copy of Detective Comics number 168. This is the origin of the Joker.
John has some crazy key issues in his collection. If you guys ever want to see some real value in comic books, definitely check out John's Instagram, because he even has like original pages from Batman Hush. Like he's definitely a heavy collector.
Say his name again. I'm following him right now. Like literally right now.
Yeah, on Twitter or Instagram.
Instagram,
it's going to be Johnny, the number 2, Chips.
Chips. There we go. All right, perfect.
Next up, we have Neil, whose Twitter handle is at inmats68, or on Instagram at inmats.photography.
Neil posted a beautiful shot of Dallas across the Margaret Hunt Hill Bridge, and he just started this Instagram page for specifically just his photography. He's had his Twitter for a while, but this one he's trying to build up, and he's got some great shots on there. So if you're into photography, make sure to follow Neil at inmats.photography.
And our final shout out this week goes out to Brian, whose Twitter handle is at BrianShaup1.
Brian retweeted the 1998 Game Boy Pocket Pokemon commercial. This is the one in which they're squishing the Pokemon into like the little Game Boy Pocket. They're all in that bus.
I think I remember that vaguely.
Kind of a messed up commercial if you think about it, but
it was the 90s.
yeah, there were some weird fucking commercials in the 90s.
You know, like sock and boppers and the what was the little spinny top things and they explode?
I don't remember that.
You don't remember?
You're on your own
they
there,
had
girl.
to fight. They had to fight.
Beyblades?
It was it Beyblades, and then they like were spinning.
Crossfire.
And then, there you go.
Crossfire.
Exactly,
Yeah.
and then everything explodes. That was the 90s.
Were you ever into Pokemon at all, Kevin?
I was hoping you guys wouldn't ask me. Don't. I know absolutely nothing about Pokemon. No offense, but I love all of you. And release the Snyder Cut.
All right, you can stay.
If you too, so huge thanks to Brian, Neil, John, Bobby, Lourdes, Katie, and Alexander for your Patreon support this month. If you would like your shout out every month and contributing to the content of the show based on me stalking your Twitter or Instagram and getting some content from it, head on over to patreon.com/thereasonsimBroke.
Another way you can contribute to the show is by being on the show, and you can leave us a voicemail. There's a link in the description, but speakpipe.com/thereasonsimBroke. You can leave us up to 90-second voicemail, and we'll feature you right here on the show.
That's what they call a voice nugget, right? On Cup to Cup.
Ooh, I was going to say, I might be taking advantage of that one now. Speak pipe. I got it, man. I'm on it.
Let's head into our comic book highlight of the week before we head into the Brocat block. We've got Amethyst #1.
This is both written and with art by Amy Reeder.
So Amy Reeder, we put this poll up on Twitter, and as we do every week, right, we'll put up a picture of our comic books, and we'll leave it up to the Broquettes to see which ones they want us to talk about on the show. And we recently started this about 2 months ago at the suggestion of @Cuban Slim. Well, Amy Reeder, I like to tag all the artists and writers so they can kind of see that, people are buying their books. She retweeted the poll and completely landslided it to Amethyst.
Well,
And
that's
it's
fine
like,
because
all
that's
right,
the one
well,
I voted for too, so I'm happy.
yeah, if you look at that poll, it's like, holy shit, I guess it's going to be Amethyst. And I remember Innsmouth was on Discord, like, I hope Peter J. Tomasi retweets it because I want Detective Comics to be the winner. Peter J. never came through, but we're happy to talk about Amethyst. Bear with us, Kevin. I know you haven't read this issue, but there's some good stuff in the Brocat block, and hopefully you enjoy the review too. But this one...
I'm listening. Let's go.
This is the first in the 6-issue miniseries, spins out of the Wonder comics that Brian Michael Bendis put together. That's where you had the Young Justice line releasing. And this is that same Amethyst from that team. We haven't had an Amethyst book in, I think, 6 or 8 years since the New 52. And we did enjoy that short run of it. We enjoyed the animation short that came out on DC Nation years ago. That was awesome. And of course, we had to give this a shot because of Amy Reeder's work. We liked her Rocket Girl series, and we are also fans of Amethyst. So, Kelly, what'd you think of this first issue?
I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a great setup. It, of course, takes place after Amethyst is kind of already established in who she is. She's, ruling Amethyst Land in Gem World or whatever, and she already knows that, who her parents are and has her parents back on Earth and is splitting her time between the two of them. So I did like that they explained enough that even if you didn't know who she was, you could kind of get caught up pretty easily throughout this first issue. Of course, she goes back and shit's hit the fan, right? Stuff is not the way that it should be, and so we're going to go on that journey. But as I read this, I'm always, I guess every time I read an Amethyst book, I'm always amazed that they don't do more with this character because she's a 16-year-old girl. There's, I feel so nostalgic when I read this because I'm like, oh man, when I was 16, I would have loved this. And it just amazes me that they never do any more with her than they already do.
Yeah, and unfortunately, that's due to sales, really, when you come down to it. And hopefully, this is an exception.
But I don't know. I feel like they're marketing it wrong because again, you're releasing this for adults, right? Why isn't it in the DC Zoom? Is that what
Ink
was
and
for
Zoom? Ink is the teen one.
Perfect. So why isn't it over in Ink?
They would probably do an original graphic novel like they have been doing with Catwoman, Wonder Woman, and all of them. So maybe eventually we'll get the Amethyst one. I know that line has been doing really well. It seems like every week I'm reordering from the DC
There's a Catwoman
Ink
one?
version. There is. It's called Shadow of the Cat. It's kind of fucked up because they did this issue as a free comic book they give away for all ages. But in the first issue, there's like this flashback scene of the character's abusive dad murdering her pet cat. And it's like, we were like, why did they pick this for Free Comic Book Day? How's this all ages? And so I think they're still figuring out their way with those graphic novels.
Okay.
But with Amethyst, I did enjoy it as well. I like the artwork by Amy Reeder. And the story itself is, I think, absolutely aimed at probably teen plus readers. I could definitely see how you would view that, especially with some of the supporting characters that they introduce in this. I do miss the New 52 version of Amethyst, but that's no longer the case with this continuity. They're trying to go, I think, more classic with the approach as they have been with DC Rebirth. That being said, it is in the Brian Michael Bendis universe, so you're going to have a little bit of tightening as far as what they can do with the character, because it has to still fit under what he's doing with Young Justice. But I hope that the rest of the series still tells a pretty good story that can stand outside of what Brian is doing with DC.
I would agree. It was a great first issue, and I definitely want to continue to read and see where it goes.
And if you're able to pick up the variant, gorgeous variant, and most shops should have it, since Amethyst #1 was, as with a lot of their #1s, one of the books that DC did make returnable, so that way we were able to order some extra copies to really find the ceiling on this book. If you're a fan of Gem World, or if you're looking to get into a new #1, especially if you enjoy Young Justice, definitely check out Amethyst #1.
But that does wrap up our comic book highlight for the week. And now we can move into the Brocat block, which is what happened with Daniel and I this week.
So the first question comes from @S_Miller_27. And he asked, quote, if you could have any Pokemon other than Bulbasaur, who would you choose and why? So that one looks to be aimed at me, Ivysaur, the evolved form, right?
I mean, mine's Pikachu, so...
Yeah, I mean, who would you choose other than Pikachu?
Pikachu.
Just Pikachu.
Just Pikachu. I mean, probably Bulbasaur, right? Why would you not choose Pikachu?
Because the second best Pokemon is Ivysaur, followed closely by Venusaur. And then maybe I'd consider...
if I couldn't have a Pikachu, I'd probably have a Lapras. I feel like that'd be a lot of fun.
Lapras or Dragonite, I'm guessing?
No,
one of the two?
just this giant-ass Lapras, like chilling in the backyard, eating some grass or whatever Laprases eat.
A question for you specifically, Kelly. Other than Vegeta, who is your favorite DBZ character? And if you could change one thing in that universe, what would it be?
Other than Vegeta, Bulma is my favorite character in that universe. Because they're just so perfect together. They're wonderful. If I could change one thing in the universe, it would be that Vegeta would win more.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I would really change is in that Resurrection F movie when Vegeta doesn't get to kill Frieza, it would be for him to kill Frieza.
Yeah, that was bullshit.
I just feel like that would just be so perfect for him, and like full circle. He gets his vengeance and he feels like he saved his family or whatever, his entire world. But no, Goku had to be the hero. Stupid.
Do you watch any anime growing up, Kevin, or anything you're catching up on now?
A couple of my friends that I work with are big into anime, so they try to make me watch it, and I mean, let me tell you, that it gets me hyped up for sure, because like I'll be in a normal mood, and then these guys they start having like fire around them, and they're about to fight, and I'm like, I want to go fight now, like I want to, like I'm ready, whatever we're gonna do, let's do this,
They get so excited about food in anime too, and it makes me very yes. So
no, I can relate to that now.
I remember watching Sailor Moon, and like they would bring food out and they would all just get these hearts in their eyes, and I'm like, me too, Sailor Moon.
Absolutely.
Another question from Shane is, other than Dawn of X stuff, what new Marvel stuff do you see having some staying power? I'm not reading anything Marvel. I guess I can speak on sales and what people are telling me. This is the problem that I was talking about earlier, where they're more concerned with meeting their numbers as far as how many copies they can move of books, rather than trying to tell stories that are going to be sellable 10, 20, 30, 40 years from now. And I don't think House of X or Powers of X has been set up to be that success. They released this fucking thing as a hardcover at like $60, $50 instead of the trade paperback, which is the more affordable version, and they still haven't solicited that. So I don't think they're that interested in selling the collections as opposed to the single issues. So hopefully Absolute Carnage, because it's Carnage. People like Venom. They like the symbiote characters. people will buy it just because it has Carnage's name on it. I think that one has some staying power. But Powers of X, House of X, I don't see it happening, especially when Marvel isn't supporting the trade or hardcover releases.
I mean,
Yes.
did you give an answer? You're like, nah, none of that. Nope, not that either. Nope, not that either. No, I mean, I don't know much about Marvel comics, but I mean, do they focus more on the movies or the comic books? I know they're obviously completely separate, but I mean, they're also combined at the same time, right?
Yeah, they're a lot more singular as far as the problem is they let the movies and shows dictate the comics.
Gotcha.
Which,
yeah, that's what I was wondering.
That's been their thing for the last couple of years, unfortunately, as opposed to letting the books inspire the movies and TV shows. Because then once they make them into comics or movies and shows, you then get that resellability factor. Because how many people went out and bought the Infinity Gauntlet trade paperback when Infinity War and Endgame came out? I sold the shit out of it.
Right.
And now it's like, all right, great. What stories are you writing now that are to that caliber that are going to inspire movies later? Mm-hmm. They're not concerned with that. They just released this week Falcon and Winter Soldier #1. Why? Because they have a show that's coming out.
Yeah.
So that's what they're doing. They're like, oh, what do we have coming out in the pipeline with the show? Okay, that's coming out. Make a comic on that. It's like that doesn't work. I think it should be the opposite, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. I agree with that.
Next question here comes from Twitter user @ChipChristian, who asked, quote, will you be reviewing the Harley Quinn season finale on your next podcast? I just finished watching it and it was awesome. Want to know your thoughts, end quote.
Yeah, I think we can definitely touch on it a little bit. We did just finish this week. Last night we finished it up. Finally got the opportunity. That show as a whole, I thought they did a really great job with it from beginning to end. There wasn't really ever an episode where I was like, maybe there was one episode where, it was kind of off-putting, but I thought the characters they created were great and worked well together. And yeah, the finale was no exception from that.
Yeah, I was curious to know what you thought of that, being such a big Harley Quinn fan
the biggest
as
Harley
a whole.
fan.
And she wasn't Arlene Sorkin, right? It's not the voice actor that we're used to. Mm-hmm. Did you think she did a pretty good job in this role?
I did. I really liked it. I thought it fit with who the character is. I mean, of course, I'm always going to miss Arlene, right? And she was so fantastic. But this show has a much different feel than Batman the Animated Series. So I don't think you could fit Arlene in there because Arlene's not going to give it the same emotion that, I don't know her name.
Tara Strong?
No, not Tara Strong.
Oh, the actor right now that's doing it? No, I don't know her name either.
Penny from The Big Bang Theory.
Right.
Yes. So she's not going to give as the same kind of emotion, the same kind of feel, the same kind of humor and timing, that this actress did. So, yeah, I thought it fit very well together. I liked her better than Tara Strong. I liked her better than some of the other Harleys we've gotten that I feel have just been trying to emulate Arlene rather than really understand the character and take her to where she needs to be.
Right. Yeah, I really enjoyed this. It was like an Adult Swim cartoon
very much like South Park feel almost.
Exactly.
That's what I was wondering. Is this the same one you guys were talking about where it was a little more adult heavy?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we were worried that first pilot episode was going to be the whole show where they just curse for no reason and just throw it in there even heavier. But it got lighter as it went on. I don't know if you noticed that, but after that, they're kind of like, all right, we established that this is an adult show. Now let's write the episodes. And there's a ton of gore, there's a ton of blood, but they don't really go out of their way just to curse because
for no damn reason.
Exactly.
For no fucking damn reason.
Yeah, exactly.
It does end on a cliffhanger leading into season 2. You have an alcoholic Gordon, and so they changed the characters quite a bit.
He's so funny.
But yeah.
Every time Batman shows up, he's like, my marriage is fine, Batman. It's fine. It's fine. But, I mean, if you want to talk about it. But no, it's fine. We're great.
He just wants to be Batman's friend so bad.
His best friend.
Yeah, I love the show. It was great. It's very different from the classic Harley Quinn that we know, but this is an example of not everything has to be exactly like what they built before. You can, as long as the essence of the character is there, you can do some slightly different things with them, and it definitely worked with this show. If you don't have DC Universe, I'm sure it'll be available on Blu-ray, and I would recommend picking up that first season or at least this first half of it. I think it's a season split, isn't it? Or are we going to get season 2 later?
I don't know. I thought this was the end of the first one.
Maybe it's that they split season 1 with the winter.
Diving into the episode a little bit more and just giving our thoughts on it. I don't think anybody, and these are spoilers, sorry if you want to watch it and you haven't.
Gosh.
Oh, do you want me to stop? I'll stop.
No,
sorry.
you're good.
I don't think any of us were surprised that Ivy came back.
Right.
This was obviously, expected. So, definitely wasn't a surprise. Wasn't even emotional when
That's
it
true.
happened because I knew it was going to turn around. I will say one of the things that I really liked is how much they explored her relationship with Joker and how he really felt about her, because he literally says, like, you made me fall in love with you, and so now I have to get rid of you.
Mhm.
And he even says, I can't kill you, because then essentially, and he didn't say these words, but essentially he's just going to feel guilt over that for forever. But he understands that she's so deeply rooted in him that he can't continue to be who he was or who he wants to be again if she's still even in existence.
That's deep. Oh man, hey, Joker, man, he's got a triangle, doesn't he? He did rather.
Between him and Batman and Harley,
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's in here too.
Yeah,
like
it is.
he chooses Batman over Harley a few times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you believed him because my Joker never loved Harley. He uses everyone except just to get to Batman. Batman's his project. That's who he wants to make into a better hero or a better person. He wants to get rid of his Robins, right? Just to make him into a better Robin or a Batman.
I did believe it in this because of the way he delivered when he said he loved, like the way he delivered that line. So it wasn't some big over the top, like, but Harley, I love you. He's like, no, I got to get rid of you because I love you. And like, this can't continue.
You would get corrupted by the Joker. Don't never be his therapist.
I'm already corrupted by the Joker. He probably loves me too.
Do you have a favorite version of Harley Quinn, Kevin?
Oh man, I mean anything with Margot Robbie, right?
She's so good. She's such a good Harley.
Yeah, she does. She's a perfect casting job, in my opinion.
Did you play any of the Arkham games?
I played one of them. I can't remember what. Probably the most recent one, and it just became free on PlayStation Network like a couple months back, and I was like, I already played that one, so I'm not gonna re-download that. But it was good times, man. Those are some great games, man.
Speaking of which, should we still have PlayStation Network?
No, that shit expired.
Okay, guys, take it easy.
We had like 7 years of PlayStation Network at one point.
Yeah, that was one of those things where Target had put on their ad like the year ones at $15.99 or $14.99.
Mm-hmm.
So they switched the 3-month with the 1 year one, and
just like the picture in their ad showed the 1 year instead of the 3 month.
Yeah, and I
bought them up, huh?
Yeah, we bought a few years worth, and I think I had 2 part-time jobs at the time. This was many years ago, and I couldn't afford that many more years, but I bought up what I could. And even towards the end of it, we were not really playing games as much. I was like, man, I shouldn't have bought as many years.
But they were $15 because like what happened is you got the first year, so they gave you a second year for free, and then you went and bought up like 4 of those $15.99 ones. So yeah, we had a lot of years of
PlayStation Plus.
You could just donate them over to me if you got any left over. Just gift them over to Kevin Hefner.
There you go. Final question this week comes from also a Patreon backer at Cuban Slim. Big friend of the show. Bobby unfortunately broke his streak. Last week did not submit a question. He was feeling down on it, but it's all good, Bobby, because he came through.
He submitted 2 questions this week, so we'll forgive it.
Oh, that's true. There you go. So the streak kind of continues. It's been Pulp approved.
Pulp approved.
What's he asking this week?
He asked, quote, so the streak broke, but life gets in the way sometimes, and you just have to deal with it. What are you expecting to hear out of C2E2 this week?
Yeah, first part of the question. So that's the Chicago Comic Convention. Hopefully we find out who the new replacement for Dan Didio is or what the plans are for 5G. But realistically, I don't expect DC to announce anything like that at C2E2. They just canceled their panel today. That was Meet the Publishers. And that would have had Jim Lee and Dan Didio. Yeah. So that's all gone. So that tells me that they're just going to avoid the subject until they can come out with a proper announcement, which I'm shocked they didn't already have some kind of PR statement set up. So that tells me that the firing of Dan Didio was more sudden than we think.
Interesting timing. Yeah, for sure.
The second part of his question is for me. At Kelli, what expectations do you have for the Bat-Cat book? #WonderBat. End quote.
What expectations do you have since you've been winning with your Batman Catwoman relationship for the last 2 years?
For the last forever.
Enjoy it.
They've always been together, and they've always been perfect together. My expectations are them just being amazing and in love. That's all anything more than that is just icing on the cake.
Well, Mom and Dad are fighting here, so Kevin, you choose. Who is Batman truly supposed to be with?
But don't forget who the Emperor is, so...
And it's all these women in the DC universe. He's got Wonder Woman he's been with. He's got Talia al Ghul, Catwoman, I guess. He's got Amanda Waller, Zatanna.
Amanda Waller.
I'm obviously always going with Wonder Woman.
Yes, that's a
girl.
good choice. That's a good choice.
That's my girl. That's my girl.
But they're both too headstrong. I know.
It worked though.
No,
I like that she had to like sometimes save him, but she liked it. You know, she liked kind of saving this.
Yeah, but Batman wouldn't. He wouldn't be about that.
He wouldn't. No.
I like that she did. That's one part that I'll admit. She did want someone more sympathetic and warmer, and Batman wasn't really that person, and he kind of struggled with that.
See, Batman and Catwoman are so perfect together because they both accept the other sides of themselves that have to dress up in these crazy costumes and go out and do shit in the middle of the night, and they're fine with it, and they don't expect more from each other because they know each other doesn't have more to give.
I wish my wife would be okay with that. I mean, like, she still doesn't accept the fact that I go out in this costume every night, you know?
See, you should have found a Catwoman.
You're right. I got a Wonder Woman instead.
Aww.
There you go. I approve.
That was so sweet. You never called me Wonder Woman.
Oh, my bad, Dan.
So those are the questions. Thank you guys so much for submitting those. And this is where, you know, we continue to talk about where we've been this week. Kevin, you just wrapped up the latest episode of Cup to Cup. So how'd that go for you tonight?
Oh man, it was really awesome. I mean, we had a great time. We just finished our final four. Well, half of our final four of our cereal bracket. I don't know how you guys feel about cereal.
I love cereal.
So, I mean, if you guys want to vote real quick on this cereal, what's your favorite cereal? Just hit me with that first off.
Cheerios.
Berry Kicks.
Just regular Cheerios?
I'm sorry, Honey Nut Cheerios. That was a huge mistake right there. Huge difference.
I was about to go off on you there for a second, man.
Regular Cheerios, hell no. Like maybe for babies, but even them, like I wouldn't even do that to babies. Give them Honey Nut.
Well, they can't have honey.
What about you, Kelli?
My favorite cereal of all time is Berry Kicks.
Ooh, I don't even think that made the bracket.
It should have, because they don't sell it anywhere anymore.
Oh, okay. Wow.
But it's so good. It makes the milk perfect. Berry Kick milk is the best milk.
The milk is pretty important, and that's actually a part of how we vote this. But our final four is Cinnamon Toast Crunch versus Frosted Flakes.
Ooh.
And Lucky Charms versus Daniel's favorite, Honey Nut Cheerios.
Ooh, a Honey Nut Cheerios wins out that one for me.
You think so?
Yeah.
That's a close one. So, I mean, besides that, we did have a trivia question. Would you guys want to try the trivia question?
Yes.
Please.
All right. Perfect. So our trivia question for the night, which I got right, not surprisingly, because I'm pretty fucking awesome. This celebrity once ran into his burning home to save 2 items, one of them being a pound of weed. Was it Snoop Dogg, Willie Nelson, Matthew McConaughey, or Cheech?
Those are some good options. I'm going to go with Snoop Dogg, though.
I'm going to go with McConaughey.
If you're wrong, it was Willie Nelson.
Wow, Willie Nelson.
Good old, the classic stoner. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, we had a great time tonight, and I appreciate you guys having me on tonight.
Of course.
Such a blast.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much for coming on the show. And you were talking about the trivia, the cereal bracket. Where can they vote for the cereal bracket on the top 4 here?
Unfortunately, cereal bracket, like the overall voting is done. You can still get on our social media. Cup to Cup Life.com is our website where you can go on there and check out our bracket. But if you follow us on any social media, it's going to be Cup to Cup Show. That'll be Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, whatever. So Cup to Cup Show, no spaces. We might have a vote for the last one. We actually finished tonight Cinnamon Toast Crunch versus Frosted Flakes. I don't want to give out the winner because I'm not sure when you guys are going to release this episode, but I'm sure you could probably figure it out.
I have a soft spot in my heart for Cinnamon Toast Crunch now because that was the only thing I could eat when I was pregnant. Like one of the only things that would sit in my stomach.
That's true. I remember that.
I went through like 2 boxes a week.
I think you might be in good shape there, Papa.
I do like Frosted Flakes though.
Yeah.
I do too.
But that Cinnamon Toast Crunch milk is also pretty fire.
It's top 2 in my book. Trix being the number 1 cereal milk. I
love the theory about Trix because now they're just little circles.
Yeah.
Because it's just for kids. That's why we can't see the fun shapes anymore.
Yeah.
Because we're adults. Blows my mind. I'm like, you're probably right.
But I mean, if you go back and listen to all of our other episodes, we break down a lot of things. Like I said, we do the Leo bracket. I know you guys got a little Leo over there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, I mean, we did the best Leo movie. And, along with other things. So, you guys just go check us out.
They are available on your favorite podcatcher, whatever you're listening to us on now. They are available on there. You can search Cup to Cup Show or Cup to Cup Podcast, but I would recommend going straight to their website because if you scroll down, you have a link to Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple Podcast, and everything. They make it real easy to be able to find exactly where you can subscribe to their show.
Before we move on from the cereal talk, I did just Google Berry Berry Kicks because now I'm craving some. Thanks. Walmart sells them. But they have the Paw Patrol version now.
Oh, there you go.
We have to. We have to have everything Paw Patrol.
Everything Leo loves, like we have to, like it's just inevitable. We have to love it as well, right? And you're a more experienced dad. Does that continue? Is there stuff that you're now into with your older kids?
100%. I mean, one of the things we do on the podcast, a Cup to Cup, we also do my dad tip every now and again at the end of the episode. And we didn't get to it tonight, but one of my dad tips was what is your child's happiness worth? I mean, because we went to a circus where I was guaranteed, I knew that every one of these little circus games was rigged and there was no way we were going to win them. But still, I'm pouring, $5, $10, $15. And every time my kid wants to do something for these little $2 stuffed animals. And you know what? They had a blast and, they love those little stuffed animals. So, I mean, it never stops. It never stops.
That's a great dad tip.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you just gotta waste some money,
Every time I walk into Target.
Absolutely.
So thank you again, Kevin, for joining us on today's episode. I am going to go ahead and put a link as well to where you can find and subscribe to Cup on the description of today's episode and on our Patreon description. Anything else you want to say before we sign off, Kevin?
No, man, I had a great time. Thank you, everybody. Release the Snyder Cup. Go follow us, Cup to Cup Show, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. I said Instagram twice. Ignore it. Or cup2cuplife.com. Thanks so much, guys.
There you go, Brocat Core. Thanks for tuning in this week. I've been Bug Maniac Daniel.
And I am Emperor Papa Kelli.
And Brocat Core. All will be well.
You forgot to ask me what I did this week.
It is very important to know what is happening in the Empire. Papa Kelli, what'd you do this week?
Not much. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. It's final weeks for school, so I had to write this 1,500 word essay, right? And I waited till the last minute because why would I work on it before then? Knock that bitch out in 30 minutes. I was just like, here's my thoughts. Didn't proofread it. Sent it in. Who knows?
It'll be an A. You're convinced that they don't read your paper?
No,
at this point.
they don't read my paper. I was falling asleep writing my last paper, like eyes half closed, and they gave me 100%. So
I will tell you from the time that. Actually, no, I did read every fucking paper.
I know you did. I have some of your papers printed out and like stored away because you worked so hard on them for hours. I'm not that kind of student.
All I can say about this week, and I'm burned out on Punchline. Like, I'm sick. I don't want to hear about Punchline. The sooner this particular wave of speculator booming is done, the better. I'll focus on my regulars, my readers, my Wednesday warriors. There was a pretty messed up article on Bleeding Cool from a shop owner in San Francisco, and he just went off about speculators. Like, I'm like, holy shit! Like, there must be no PR anything over there on that end. But right. I'm like, he's not wrong in what he's saying, but I've never seen so many F-bombs from like a publicly released letter from a comic shop owner out there in San Francisco. But all the comments were like, oh, he's got a great shop. He's great. And blah, blah, blah. I'm like, all right, well, when you've been doing it since 85.
He is just as sick of Punchline as you are.
Yes.